Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a weekly deep dive into the world of college admissions.
Hi, this is Andy Strickler. I am currently the Dean of Admission and Financial Aid at Connecticut College, located in New London, Connecticut. I've also worked in athletics and admissions at Kalamazoo College, Beloit College, Sinus College, and Guilford College in Greensboro, North Carolina.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Mark. I'm a college coach in Atlanta and the parent of two daughters. Karis, a graduate of Davidson College, and she is the founder of the Spanish tutoring company, SpanishHelpToday.com. And Joy is a wellness coach at the Keenan Flagler Business School at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And I'm so blessed to be able to work alongside both my beautiful daughters at School Match for You, a college counseling firm that I founded in 2010. This week in the news, we continue with Andy Strickler as he shares what is it that he and his friends, other chief enrollment officers, talk about when they get together right now. What trends are they noticing and observing? That will be part 2 of 2. And then Lisa continues her excellent interview with Sam, a high school senior from right here in the ATL, and Samantha, a freshman in college from North Jersey. And they're talking about dealing with stress in the college admission process. And for our college spotlight, Lisa's back, joined by Linda, to talk about Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont. Listen and enjoy.
And now it's time for Hot Topics in the News.
The Tennessees, the Clemsons.
Yep.
Certainly Georgia, Florida, Texas. I mean,
Absolutely.
UNC, UV, all those schools, they're up.
Yes.
What's your theory of the case?
Well, I think there's definitely something to what you said, the weather and tailgating and football and this, you know, what would be considered this traditional college experience in the United States. But I also think that there are more layered and complex issues of identity that also flow into this. And we must, continue to caution and remember that we're dealing with a generation of students that's really only 4 years out from a global pandemic where they spent, a year, 18 months, somewhat socially isolated and missed a significant chunk of personal development windows. And one of the easiest ways to, if you are navigating any type of identity related issue, who am I? One of the easiest ways to navigate that is to, find or join a group or an organization that is going to give you immediate identity and security around that identity. And community at a place like LSU or the University of Texas or the University of Tennessee or the University of Georgia or Clemson, community and identity are really easy, because it's I don't want to over-characterize it as homogenous, but, you arrive on LSU's campus and everyone's wearing purple and yellow and, go Tigers. And it's GEAUX, not GO Tigers, and I think there's part of that wraps into this around some of these more complex identity related issues as students are trying to identify and seek out acceptance and community around certain identity issues.
And for some people, it's the fraternity sorority scene. That's
Totally
that's all part of that identity, right? That's that's appealing. I should have mentioned South Carolina as well, because I've seen a huge surge from them. I never used to get South Carolina. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. Do you see this internally, Andy? Like, will you guys go back and follow up with the family and that you admitted and you've lost and found out that, it's the second one we've lost to Tennessee? That never used to happen. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing it like on that level in your research? And refusal surveys or anything?
No, the funny thing is that I think we're seeing it on the app end rather than the admit end.
I see.
That more and more students are choosing to apply to a different selection of institutions. And as a result, we're not even seeing them in our applicant pool because they have deliberately sought out completely different looking and feeling options from what we're going to offer at a small liberal arts college.
You know, there are a couple of the reasons we haven't brought up that have come up, because I've actually done a lot of interviews and read articles. I don't know if you read Town and Country did a really big article on this a while ago.
Okay.
You know, that we talked about. And then also when I interviewed, I don't know if you know, Fabrizio DeLuzio over at Tennessee. He's over their office. He used to be at the College Board for 14 years, and then now he's over Tennessee's chief. I asked him about this.
Yep.
So some of them also pointed back to COVID, people not liking the more, well, I'll word it positively, appreciating the freedom component that some of the Southern schools had during COVID when it came to masks.
Right.
That also came up when I interviewed David Graves, who's the director of admission at UGA. Some of them liked that as one reason. And some of it is, you know, the perception that Northeast schools are too woke. There's a little bit of that in there.
Yep.
There's the, and then another factor is what you brought up earlier, like so many people will see the private liberal arts sticker price and say, I can't do that. There's no way.
Right.
The average person, if you're not getting guidance in counseling.
Right.
You know, I was talking to a client I'm working with, and he went to UCLA and he's done really well in his career. But he said, I wanted to go to Swarthmore College growing up, but I took a look at that price and I said, no way. He said, nobody even told me they had money.
Yeah.
So when I had Jim Bach on, he really wanted to hit that point really hard.
Yeah.
Before I ask anyone to come on the podcast, I asked them, what do you want to talk about besides Swarthmore? We can do a Swarthmore College interview only, but when I interview a thought leader, I like to have them address another issue they have passion about. And Jim Bach said to me right away when I asked him this question, can I talk about how our sticker price is rarely what most people are going to actually pay? So one of the things a lot of these schools are doing, Tennessee's done a great job, South Carolina's done a great job, certainly Alabama's done a great job, is really dangling their merit scholarships out there and pretty much saying we can almost be the price of your in-state, and
right.
In some cases they can be.
Right.
And I think that's also a factor too. Like, as you know what I mean, this cost thing gets higher, and then the dam breaks, and then I don't know. What are some of the theories your colleagues have?
I think we've hit on almost all of them there. The cost thing, I think, is a major impediment, despite the fact that we repeatedly talk about scholarships and financial aid and guaranteeing to meet full demonstrated need. We're fighting a perception that public is cheaper out of pocket than private. And there are plenty of instances where it isn't. You know, I think the fraternity and sorority scene at places, I think all of that factors into it. And you know, I also, you know, the COVID thing, the woke thing, I think they're all sort of having the breeze blowing in one particular direction, and the sail of the boat is pushing it that direction. I think you're absolutely right with all of that stuff.
You know, and another thing is people are moving to these places, right? Like Georgia,
Yeah.
South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, Florida. So then a lot of people vacation down there. They get comfortable with the regions from
Yep.
vacations, or they know friends and people that move down there. So then they get curious and say, let me go check it out because my brother is moving down. Like, you know, it's a lot. So
Yeah.
never a dull day in higher ed.
Nope.
You know, I think you saw the writing on the wall. What was it, 8 years ago now, when you made the switch to need-based only to we're going to have to do merit?
Yes, we did that in the summer of 2016.
9 years now.
Understanding that, you know, looking internally at our own data, the easiest way I could describe it is our enrollment funnel had turned into kind of a dumbbell.
Yeah.
We had a significant number of students who were socioeconomically challenged and therefore were on significant amounts of financial aid. And then we had a significant concentration of students who were super wealthy. And the whole middle of the funnel had kind of evaporated, especially families who applied for need-based financial aid and we calculated as either no need or low need had completely disappeared from our deposit trends. And the move to merit was a way to acknowledge what we would consider to be perceived need.
Mm-hmm.
And it helped bring a whole bunch of sort of middle-class income families back to considering con as a serious option. And our deposit trends changed fairly drastically within about 2 years of the implementation of merit aid.
I brought it up because I'm not going to mention his name. I think you know him, but I was talking to another chief enrollment officer, and he was like, the days of not being able to have merit unless you're the biggest of the brands and thinking people are going to pay $100K, those days are over, other than a select group.
Correct.
And then he proceeded to have a conversation about some pretty well-known schools that didn't even come close to making their class, that are still holding out to the old, need-based only. And any thoughts on that?
Well, the funny thing is that a week from today, in fact, 7 days from right now, I'm going to be standing in a big room up on the north side of campus doing a plenary presentation, which is the major presentation for our October Board of Trustees meeting. There are 3 subsections of that presentation, and one of them is around the conversation of merit aid. And why do we do merit aid? And I essentially need to go in there and convince the trustees that we can't move away from it because we just don't have the demand component that Stanford does. Stanford could call someone on September 3rd, the kid's moving in somewhere else, like, hey, do you want to pay 90 G's to come here? They're like, sign me up. Here I come. We're getting in the car.
I know.
We don't have, very few places have that kind of demand where that's going to be the case. So that's one of the major things I'm going to be doing a week from now. And trust me, I am stressing about it big time.
Do you get some blowback because it's still pretty common in the NESCAC? Friends, while editing, it dawned on me that not everyone may know what I mean when I say NESCAC. So I thought I should explain what the NESCAC is. The NESCAC is an acronym for the New England Small College Athletic Conference. It's a group of elite schools in the Northeast. There are 11 of them altogether that play in the same athletic league. And Connecticut College is in the NESCAC. But I'm going to say this, and I know Andy wouldn't be offended by this. Most of the schools in the NESCAC are perceived by the public as being, to use Andy's words, higher up the food chain than Conn College from a prestige and selectivity standpoint. So most of the schools in the NESCAC can get away with not giving away merit aid. And people will pay the $100,000 to go there if they have that much money. So that is why Andy's feeling the pressure from some board members who are saying, why can't we be like the other NESCAC schools? If you're curious, the 11 colleges in NESCAC listed alphabetically are Bates, Bowdoin, Colby, Connecticut College, Hamilton, where, by the way, Daniel Champlain taught for over 40 years, Middlebury, Trinity, Tufts, Wesleyan, and Williams. Of these 11, 8 of these colleges follow the Ivy League and offer no merit money to any student. And by 8, I'm referring specifically to Amherst, Bowdoin, Colby, Hamilton, Middlebury, Tufts, and Wesleyan. Well, Wesleyan literally has one merit scholarship. And when Cliff Thornton was there, and he was there for 30 years, he's like, we have one. I don't even tell people about it because we literally have one. So for all intents and purposes, they don't have any. And then Williams College. So that only leaves Bates, which, by the way, has very little merit, Connecticut College, and Trinity as schools that really have merit. And Trinity doesn't have that much. So you see the pressure Andy feels if a trustee is looking at peers. Andy is a regular in our rotation, so I thought you may want to know what the NESCAC is. It's one of his peer groups he often refers to, that and 8 of the best. And that's another peer group of high-quality national schools that he travels with around the country. You know, the 8 of the best goes all the way from the East Coast to the Midwest to the West Coast. And it includes schools like Claremont McKenna, California, Colorado College, which you guys know from Hillary, Karen, and Matt, in Colorado Springs, Conn College, of course, in New London, Connecticut, Grinnell in Iowa, Haverford in Pennsylvania, just outside of Philly, Kenyon, in Ohio, McAllister, Minnesota, and Sarah Lawrence in Bronxville, New York. To be a needs-only school, right? You've got Williams and Amherst and Middlebury and Tufts and Bowdoin. You've still got it. Is that where sometimes you face some of those questions from maybe trustees? Hey, look at these schools. We're in the same athletic conference. Yeah.
Yep. I get it. And there are various pockets.
Sure.
There are various pockets of internal constituencies that are pushing that argument. And there are various pockets of external constituencies, which would be trustees that are pushing that conversation. I'm super thankful that my president and I see eye to eye that, like, one, it's necessary, but two, it's also healthy for the institution. We have much greater socioeconomic diversity across super affluent all the way down to students who qualify for significant amounts of aid. It's a much more evened out socioeconomic student body than it was, say, in 2015 or 2016 when I was in my early tenure here.
Do you remember when Franklin and Marshall a few years ago said they were going only to need-based? Did you follow that at all?
Yep, I did.
And I was wondering, how can they do that given this market? And then I read an article, they had a $12 million shortfall.
Yep. And
then the next thing I know, they're right there with Dickinson and Gettysburg. They're about there shelling out the merit. It didn't last.
They had a $12 million structural deficit.
Yeah.
Because it gets hard to generate the right kind of revenue for the size of your student body if you're relying on those two student populations only with a commitment. And I will applaud Franklin and Marshall for this. And I rarely applaud competitor institutions. You know that, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm all about getting
you're
on the
a runner,
podcast
you're a competitor.
and ripping on schools left and right. Like, this place. But I would applaud F&M because they have a commitment and have had a commitment to socioeconomic diversity and enrolling a greater cohort of students who traditionally, due to socioeconomics, wouldn't have been at a place like F&M. And I think it's healthy and it's great. It leads to better learning outcomes for your students. It leads to having a better and more aware community when it comes to sensitivity issues around all different kinds of things. So I give F&M a ton of credit. But eventually the reality comes knocking on your door and you're like, we need to even out our enrollment funnel just a little bit and find other ways in which we can sort of generate some revenue.
I feel the same way as you. I mean, I worked at KIPP for 14 years.
Yeah.
So I've been the access stuff. Even when I was at Westtown, I was always doing access work.
Yep.
And I know the argument of you're giving money to a family that makes $250. That's a family that's in the top 5% of the socioeconomic, blah, blah, blah. That could be going to, a first-gen kid and change the whole trajectory. I know that argument, but I also know how you got to pay your bills. And I'm a pragmatist. And you're bringing another component. It's not just pay the bills, which is you're going to lose the middle because they're not going to come.
Right.
But, when I was at Westtown, I saw this because, it's a lot to pay boarding school tuition.
Yeah.
Knowing that what you do for one, you probably do for your next kid. And then you're not doing that, not going to turn around and pay college.
Right.
And most of those families are looking at private schools. So it's a substantial, amount of money. But I just sort of saw that reality that at the end of the day, though. Yeah, you can't have the barbell. And what I saw at Westtown, I can literally think of one person in my 9 years there. And I'm sure there are others. I didn't get to know everybody's finances, but I can think of one family that was really, really ultra conservative in how they spent money, like not going to restaurants. Most of the people that paid that amount of money, they still wanted to have their nice vacations.
Yeah.
Drive their nice car, have a nice dine out, eat out, join maybe in the country club. So it tended to be people that had a certain level of discretionary money unless they were getting heavy aid. There wasn't a lot of people that I'm going to sacrifice everything for this experience. And I can tell you on this side of things, I see it all the time, Andy. I'll talk to a family that will tell me, I'll pay $100,000 for name your school, the designer schools, and I'm struggling to get them to pay 40 to 45 for really good private schools that would probably be in your peer group.
Right. I did a financial aid presentation earlier this year for the Ames group out of Baltimore, and I've started talking more openly in these presentations about like, hey, listen, we need to have this, families need to have this conversation around resources and threshold, which sometimes are in complete agreement and other times are not. Like the resources indicate we could spend X, but our threshold is really Y, which is a different number. And then part two of that is that the threshold changes based on the perception of the school.
Completely.
And I put two images up. I'm like, I totally understand that the threshold for Stanford is going to be a little different than the threshold for Connecticut College. It's just the way it is, and you're having that conversation with families as well.
Yeah, most definitely. In some ways, I almost wish we could go back and revisit the conversation we had. We did a lot of speculation last time, right? Would there be more waitlist activity? Would there be more appeals?
Yep.
And there was all of that.
Oh, totally.
You weren't sure about the waitlist because you said people went out and led with more on the front end.
But at the time, I think we were having this conversation. I don't think we had factored in the idea that research funding was going to become a tool of the federal government to try to strong arm higher education into an ideological conformity along with the administration. And I certainly think the places like Duke and Stanford and others, and maybe a place like Johns Hopkins, we're all of a sudden mid to late summer thinking, is there any way we could generate some extra revenue?
Sure. Let's
just force some triples here and see if we can find 50 to 100 more full pay students, which is going to generate a couple $1 million.
Yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, Andy, I could talk to you about this stuff all day, but I want to transition to this.
Hey, this is Friday afternoon. You're going to start giving me nightmares, and I'm not going to sleep tonight. I thought this was going to be like laid back AP class conversation.
Well, we're going to go to that.
So when I wake up in the middle of the night crying, I'm going to text you, okay? That's what I'm going to do, Mark. It's 3:30 in the morning. I'm tossing and turning. It's your fault.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Do you feel like if you don't get into like where like a prestigious university, Sam, and I can't imagine that wouldn't be the case. Just talking to you seems so articulate and smart and organized and all the things that would make a person successful. But let's say, I don't know, like there's like a full moon when they're reading your application, weird things happen and you don't get in where you want to go. Do you think your parents are going to be disappointed in you?
I can very truly say, at least my mom, my dad might be a little bit, but my mom will definitely, she supports it as long as she knows I tried my hardest and I genuinely put in the effort to make a quality application. Or if I'm submitting everything at 11:59, if I'm, not passing things over with my counselor, if I'm not talking to people about the process, she's going to understand that you got what you deserve because you did not put together a quality application that would get you admitted. But if she knows that I did everything right and it still didn't work out, that's just how it happened. And that's fine with her.
What about when you got that moment when you opened that portal, Samantha, and it said no thanks? Which I said, I think that school is just, they missed the boat there. But what was that like for you and your parents?
It was definitely difficult. I mean, being, I guess, an overachiever in high school. I was the president of a few clubs. I did speech and debate. I started a business. So this probably sounds so annoying, but like, I wasn't expecting to get in. But it's just hard seeing rejection. I think looking back now, I'm so beyond grateful that I didn't get into the school I AD to for so many reasons. And I'm so happy where I am now. Luckily, a lot of other colleges worked out for me after the rejection of my AD. So it was almost a blessing in disguise. But of course, that doesn't play out the same way for many, many people. I feel like I know a lot of friends who are going to schools that they feel are below themselves prestige wise, and they recognize that, and it's upsetting, but that's just how things played out. For me, if I were to give advice to students or parents who are throwing in an ED, especially to a prestigious school or maybe one that was a long jump for them, I would just say keep your expectations low. For the 2 weeks before I knew my ED response was coming back, I was extremely, extremely anxious, but I just kept telling myself, I'm not getting in. I'm not getting in. I'm not getting in.
Oh, that's so
In a
sad.
good way. No, no, no. It was actually genuinely, it was so helpful for me because I wasn't surprised when I opened it. I know this sounds crazy, but I think it was the best thing I could have done for myself.
Yeah, well, I think just like it's like a mental rehearsal, of like, and then when it happens, you're like, okay, I've kind of played this through in my thoughts and feelings a little bit. So, um,
Also, when I say I'm not getting in, I'm not getting in, I don't mean like negative self talk, like, oh, I'm a terrible applicant. I mean it in a let me take a step back and put things in perspective. This school is so competitive. And even if I'm a great applicant and I'm proud of all of my accomplishments, it's just tough. And I'm not coming from New Jersey. I'm, uh,
mhm.
I didn't, I personally felt that factors were against me as well.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's true. Like, a female applicant, a strong female applicant from New Jersey, like those are the kids that I'm like, oh, this is like heartbreaking, because there's
For
like,
sure.
unfortunately, you're very popular in New Jersey. There's so many, and like the schools don't want, they can fill the entire school with like strong female applicants from New Jersey, right? And they don't want to do that, so it's tough.
Yeah, that was definitely frustrating for me, but once again, not much you could do about it.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that is hard. What about like, and I'm hoping people are not doing this as much, but those reveal videos where like you're getting filmed opening the portal, like that just seems like my worst nightmare as a human being. But like, do people still do that, and are they still posting them? And
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
oh,
um, yeah, I mean, I have probably like 10 videos in my camera roll of me opening applications. I personally didn't upload them or show them to anyone. I just did it for the memories, I guess. I don't know. um, just to capture hopefully some excitement. But I mean, when January hits and December hits and these applications are coming out, my For You page on TikTok was flooded with them. And whether it's people in New Jersey or people in California or around the world, like there are people who are getting into these schools and those videos are getting posted. So I will
yeah.
tell you the rejection videos are much less commonly posted than the acceptance videos.
True, true. And yeah, those algorithms on TikTok, like they know you're interested in college applications. And, if you watch one of those videos, you're going to get all of them from everywhere all the time, and yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on to that. I think social media almost has, like, as you were kind of talking about, a little bit of a positivity bias. You always see the acceptances and not as much of the rejections. I mean, they're still there, but you see a lot more of the acceptances because that's what's exciting. That's what people want to post. So it almost creates this vacuum of seeing everyone getting into these great schools and almost as if their life is going so much greater than yours, when you might have just come fresh off a rejection or something like that. So it's just really important to also acknowledge that everything you see on
Mhm.
social media is the highlights, as people say.
Yeah,
Um,
it's all curated, right?
yeah,
You know? Um, so that's just, wow, that is hard. Well, I always tell people to not do that. And then if you want to, like, you do get in, and you want to like recreate it, then do it a second time, but like a cold open, no, I could not imagine. Okay. So we've talked a lot about like the stress, social media, peers, parents, school. What about the actual process itself, right? I mean, Sam, you alluded to this at the beginning, like just even managing the actual list of tasks you need to do. Like, how is that going in terms of stress?
Yes. So being very organized throughout the process and starting early is definitely a huge help. I know for myself, I have a Google Sheet with all the schools I'm applying to. It's organized by deadline. It has like, if I'm applying to a scholarship that's associated with it and the deadline for that. And then I also linked all of the like all the documents with all my supplementals directly onto the spreadsheet. And
Smart.
also like a space for like all the application portals too. You don't have those yet because you're applying through the Common App right
Hmm.
now. But having all that information in one place, it's so helpful to have. I even have that for like program applications. Let's say I'm applying to summer programs or different extracurriculars. I have that for those positions as well. So having, I would say, like a good spreadsheet with all your documents attached to it in one place is a huge help. Now, also understanding the Common App. If you're a junior going into senior year, take a look at the Common App, make an account, kind of like click around at your colleges, anything like that, just to familiarize yourself with the portal and how everything looks. That's super important because you don't realize how much goes into a college application until you see all those tabs and you see all those questions and you realize you have to do that for 15, 20 schools. It's a lot. Definitely do that.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Are you keeping on schedule, Sam?
Yes, I'm happy to say I'm keeping on schedule. I've finished all my supplementals for my early round, so very happy about it.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's awesome. So, what was like the most stressful part of the nuts and bolts of things for you, Samantha?
The most stressful part of applying to college?
Yeah, like like getting all the documents in the Common App, the supplementals, trying to keep the process organized, dealing with your teachers and getting them to do what they need to do. Like, what was the stressful part of that, and how did you manage it?
I honestly just think the whole stress of
It's like a
not
ball.
just like not knowing where you're going next year, putting in so much effort, and will this effort and dedication actually be shown in my results, or am I wasting my time here? I think just the process as a whole is very stressful. I think my biggest piece of advice would be to start early, start in August. Um, Adding on to what Sam said, like look at the Common App, make your activity list, even if you don't want to start your essays right away. There are so many things on the Common App. You have to fill out all of your information, data about your family and their jobs, etc. Like this stuff takes time. If you're pushing off the essays, at least fill in some of that stuff. I would also say be really strategic in the order in which you do your supplementals and the way in which you write them. I was able to reuse so many supplemental stories and content among different schools. I have like three main extracurriculars. One is a business I started, one is a club, one is a volunteer thing. And I have a paragraph that I copied and pasted probably into 10 different schools. And my analysis of the story was completely different, but at
Hmm.
least I had a set structure. So I think that was nice too.
Hmm.
Pretty helpful.
How have the supplementals been going for you, Sam? Were you able to reuse things, or was it everything all new?
Yes, so I have. Should I say like the school I'm applying to early?
You can if you want, but I probably wouldn't, you know.
Okay, okay.
You
I'll
can allude to them what to type, right? Like what type of
okay.
school they are.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm applying to a few state schools early. Some of them are like pretty prestigious, and they all kind of have like very different prompts. Like one of them is about like a book you enjoyed. One of them is about, of course, some of them are like the more typical questions like your major, why are you interested in our school? Those I plan to be able to recycle more. But
Hmm.
for some of the schools, especially like the state schools, they have very like different prompts, and there's only one. So it's a little bit different. I haven't been able to recycle as much yet, but I've been able to reuse some of the same ideas. And since I'm applying
Hmm.
to some schools, I'm sure I'll be able to just reuse some of them.
Yeah,
I've seen a
yeah.
lot of the supplementals already. They're pretty much asking the same question. So
Yeah, I find that like if you are applying to a lot of those really prestigious Ivy schools, they have some tough questions, like really thought-provoking questions, and those that take a lot of time. And so like when it gets to be December, a lot of students will be like, you know what? Dartmouth really isn't, I don't really want to go there that much anymore. I just looked at this list of all the questions I have to write. They
Totally.
can really be hard, I think, you know.
Definitely, definitely, and to always try and tackle it in a unique way and something that's completely new. I remember going to some information sessions, and some of these people are like, "We've kind of read it all. We've kind of read so many applications that it's very hard for you to just surprise us." So having that sort of context and still trying to write something even more new and even more unique and something that will help you stand out amongst so many incredible people, it's something very daunting. So I would definitely
Hmm.
say give yourself some time to look at the supplementals. Even if you're not going to write them, read the supplementals.
Hmm.
If you're a junior and it's the summer before, even if you're a junior now, you can read supplementals and just theorize and go through the rest of
Right.
the year like this might be an experience that's valuable to this question. I think that makes the whole theorizing part of it so much easier.
Yeah, you're right. You need to give yourself time to mull it over and to have experiences that might apply to it. So I think those are great suggestions. Yeah, and I just want to say, like, you guys are like 17, 18, going through this process. I mean, everything you've talked about is a lot. I cannot imagine myself at 17. I was a pretty organized 17-year-old. I cannot imagine myself being able to even create Sam's spreadsheet. Um, Actually, I kind of can't imagine. I'm spreadsheet literate. I can't imagine myself being able to do it now. But like, at least I would have like the idea, like that's something you should do. Like, how has it been? Like, was it a big jump for you to like manage this project? From anything else you've ever done? How was that adjustment, just even getting into the whole thing?
I will say a lot of extracurricular experiences kind of guided me through how I can craft an application, how I can be organized in some sort of application process. I'll say like last year I applied to a lot of summer programs, like free ones and things that would, I guess look on a resume or look on a college application. And kind of going through that like preliminary round your junior year and even before, it can definitely help you get used to being organized in a structure and having a good methodology on how you want to attack the whole process. So definitely apply to things, even if it's not just college. Apply to different programs that give you exposure. I think it's really important to have that.
I think that's really interesting and brings up a good point. I never applied to any of those programs and honestly haven't done much creative writing or writing about myself or reflection in many, many years. My high school's English classes were strictly 5 paragraph essays analyzing books. So for me, it was definitely difficult to write about myself, having really no prior experience until the college application process.
Yeah, that's like really, I think that personal essay is so challenging because, I mean, it's like you write in this particular style with all this insight about you never do it before, and I don't think you do it too much after. Like, I don't think like your med school wants to hear about your feelings in their application, right? Or the B school. Like, so it's really just this one thing, this one period of time, and yet we're expecting people to just like it's really important, right, that this essay is good, and you're gonna have to nail it right out of the box. It's hard. So I suppose, maybe people could just practice like, writing little journal entries about themselves and trying to analyze something that happened just to get that practice because I know and my daughter will probably be mad that I said this, but like she is such a logical writer and everything's like, I feel this, here's 7 reasons of evidence why. I'm like, no, 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 like nobody cares. Like we want the feelings. And she just looks at me like I'm insane. But because that's all the writing that she's done, you know?
Totally.
So it is really a skill that you have to learn fast.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
feel,
Oh, sorry.
no, you're fine. You can go.
I was going to say, I think it's really important to read throughout the process too. You read nonfiction,
Mhm.
or sorry, read fiction, because that teaches you how to pace a story, and that teaches you how to describe. That teaches you how to pick things of a story that you think are particularly important to prove a point. I would just say read, and then also think about yourself, and then have that sort of practice journaling, writing. I think it's all very important to being a good writer.
Yeah, yeah. There is a woman, her name is Irina Smith, and we actually interviewed her on the podcast, but she was a college counselor for many years, and she wrote a memoir about being a college counselor. And she worked in Palo Alto, so that was like the Stanford crowd, all while her own kids were having like different problems, and her kids were not going to be going to Stanford and what that was like. But what she suggests, and she's a fantastic writer, is that people start reading memoir, like read that genre of memoir, like even if it's just short memoirs, maybe starting in your junior year, because it just builds this like idea of how you can build a story and how you can express yourself. And also that thing that everyone is sick of me saying, show not tell. These memoirs can have really good examples of that. So that's just another tip. Um, honestly, I feel like for me, like my father was in advertising, and this is what we did for fun in my house. He would give me 6 boxes, and he'd say, like, tell a story in 6 boxes. And so you'd have like an ad, like a 30-second ad. So you'd have like, these 6 points that were really important. You had to pick out what the most 6 important points are. So I did like thousands of those as a kid. And now I think when I look at these personal essays, I'm like, okay, where are your 6 boxes? What are the
Aw,
things?
I
So
love that.
but that was just happening to grow up in that house at that time. And it's really hard for me not to think in 6 boxes, honestly. So that's, a bit limiting. But just anything you can do to try to work on that for yourself. So I would just say for parents, like that's a useful thing to talk about the whole idea of memoir and personal introspection. And, and just thinking about things and even talking about things that happen in people's life from that kind of perspective. Well, I know we're running out of time, and you guys have been like such fabulous panelists. What's the best advice that you have? And you've already given a lot of advice, but is there anything else that you want to tell parents, students, or college counselors about how we can make this better for students?
I need a minute to think about that.
Take all the time you need.
This doesn't answer the question you just asked, but going back to the memoirs and personal
Mm-hmm.
exploration, um, I didn't do this, but I think it would be valuable for parents and kids to just reflect on the students' experiences and memories in the past few years of their life. Say you're sitting at the dinner table and you don't know what to talk about. Just ask them, what do you think you've learned from this? Or what do you think blank extracurricular taught you? And just discuss it. And I think that's an easy way to get the student's mind thinking and brainstorming about what they've learned and the way that they've been impacted by their extracurriculars without turning it into an entire educational session where they have to read and do stuff that their parents are telling them to do because they think it's going to help, and that might not bring as much direct impact to them. I don't know. Throughout the year, if you need something to talk about, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, the insight's never bad, right? Like understanding yourself
Yeah.
is usually like that is not just about college admissions. That's about life. So.
I would say I kind of have two pieces of advice. I would say for people who are a little bit later within their high school career, I would say to think about what you really want in life. Think about the type of person you want to become, and think about, regardless of prestige or whatever name of the institution you go to, think about how your college experience could possibly intersect with that, whether it's through research, whether it's through clubs, whether it's through school spirit, whether it's whatever you value. Regardless of what institution you go to, you need to think of how college can be your bridge to that goal. And then also, I would say for younger people who are just starting to think about college, whether if it's in sophomore, freshman year, however early it is, I would say to first of all think about what colleges you want to go to, and then maybe if you can get in contact with those people, that could be incredibly valuable to know where you might have to be to get into a certain institution. Uh, I would say that was something that was really big for me, just to get a gauge of what are some great summer programs to be applying to. I know, and I don't really like LinkedIn because I think it can just create so much stress. Um, but I really do think it gave me an understanding of like the opportunities that are out there, because a lot of times people think you have to follow a very narrow path to get into these great universities when there really are so many opportunities out there that you just don't know about just because it's not around you. I would definitely say to reach out to people who are kind of at the places you already want to be, and see how, once again, their journey can intersect with yours, and how you can expound upon your passions that way.
That's another really fantastic suggestion. Samantha, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that Sam said. I also have two final pieces of advice, one of them very similar to Sam. Um, My first piece of advice would be to prioritize your happiness. Like Sam said, think about your values and what's important to you, and think about where you genuinely would be happy. I think, like in college, I think in high school, I cared way too much about prestige. I never fully wrapped my head around the fact that I would be living in that place for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents really pushed me to think about this. I ended up getting in regular decision to an Ivy League school, and I still committed to the prestigious state school, but not an Ivy League school that I'm at right now. And I definitely would not have made that decision if it weren't for my parents' motivation. We sat down and had a conversation. Do I want to go to this Ivy League school, or do I want to go to this prestigious state school that is definitely perceived differently than this Ivy League school? And I just couldn't be more happy with my decision. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think I said it all, but picture yourself there and ask yourself if that is the place that is going to make you happy, where you can grow and learn and feel comfortable. And then my second piece of advice for students going through the process, I would say I'm not the most anxious person. I'm a happy girl. I don't freak out about too many things, but the college process was definitely something I had anxiety over. I don't have social anxiety. I don't really have anxiety, but if I've ever had anxiety in my life, it was the college process. So if you're listening to me and you feel similar to me, or your parents and you see your children feeling similarly, I would encourage your kids to think about perspective, zoom out on the world, realize the position that you're in. We're so privileged to even be applying to these schools, to have the resources that we have, to just the whole opportunity is there are people going through really terrible things in this world, whether it's in the States or different countries, and there are so many struggles in the world. And when you zoom out and you think, okay, I'm living for 100 years, and this is 4 years of my life and 1 year of applying and struggles, it really helps you grasp where you are in the world and how important this really is. Of course, not to downplay college, because it's extremely important, but I think taking a step back and realizing this is important for mental health throughout the process.
Amen to that. And I love everything that you have both said about just being clear on your purpose, and really look at the objective steps of if you can get there or not, and if so, how. And Samantha, your point to that, you should go where you're going to be happy and you're going to develop them if you can, as a student, a person, rather than just look at prestige. And already you're seeing 3 weeks in that you made the right choice, and that's amazing. I just want to thank you both for taking the time to talk to me today, and for being so forthright and honest and helpful. And, I would say, I'm not worried about either one of you two being successful in this life. I think that you are both obviously smart, articulate, amazing, thoughtful people, and that is going to carry you wherever you need to go. And Samantha, I hope that college continues to be a really great experience. Of course, you're going to have bad days, especially in, February in the Midwest. Sorry, it's cloudy, it snows, it's depressing, but you're going to have those days, but you are also going to have great days. And sometimes the bad days are the things that make you great as a person. And Sam, I'm just so thrilled for the school that snags you. They're going to have just such a wonderful person there. And I wish you all the best of luck in this process. But you've gotten all the bases covered, so it's almost like you don't need luck, you know? So, you've done all the things. And so I just want to thank you so much for being here today. And I know this is going to help a lot of families and students. And like I said, as a college counselor, it's just so great to, I did not realize all that stuff was pressuring you on social media. I don't know why that didn't occur to me. And so that's really helpful for me to be aware of it, and so many other things. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, and good luck to Sam and your daughter and everyone else out there.
That's right. We can do this, you guys. Yeah, and Sam, keep us posted.
Yes,
Let us know
guys.
how you're doing and how it goes. And Samantha, I'd love to hear about how college goes. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
all right. Well,
Thank
take
you.
care. Thank you.
And now it's time for our college spotlight of the week.
Hi, Linda. I have another great Vermont school to talk about today, which is Champlain College. And I can't wait to tell you about it because it is another really unique school that I was very fortunate to get to see on this tour. So,
I'm excited to hear about this one. So, because my very good friend's son is a student here. So I'm going to ask the questions that she asked me, and you're going to have the answers.
All right. Well, if I don't, I will just make some up. No, I won't. I'll Google it like all good people do. All right. So Champlain is an undergraduate institution primarily. It is 1,700 undergraduates. It is, as you may expect, in Burlington, Vermont, right on the lake, shore of Lake Champlain. It is right next to the University of Vermont. It abuts it. So, and they are really trying to shake things up. We met with the president of the university, and he says he wants to disrupt the status quo in higher education. And that his focus is that these kids are ready for their career when they leave. And right now, they have like 90% of kids having a great career outcome and 80% having jobs in their major by the first 6 months. So now one of the things that is there's super unique stuff. I don't know. Did your friend talk about the upside down curriculum?
Yeah. So she did because her son is, I think, game design, like focused, I think, more on the art versus the programming part of it.
Right.
So talk to us about upside down, which sounds like something from like Stranger Things or some science fiction kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this is not typical of how American education is, where most of the time you go to college, you have to take the basics first, your general education. You might not even take a course in your major till your second or third year of college. Well, that's not how it happens at Champlain. You start in your major classes right away because they want to bring kids in with their interests, and they want kids to take these classes, and they want them to confirm that they like what they think they liked, or they want them to pivot right away. They're trying to save time. And, so that you can change your major instead of having to change your career in your adult years. And that kids love this. This is a school that's known, I think, to be supportive for kids with ADHD. And I think part of it is because they draw them in with the things that they are excited about and they love. And they don't have to get through that boring calculus class right away. They will have to get through it, right? It's going to happen, but it will, by the time you're doing it, you're more mature. And they're like, well, I'm sorry, sir, but you have to take this class to graduate. So you'll do it then, right? Because you're motivated. Whereas, when you're just looking at it at the beginning, you're like, ugh, this is going to be a slog. Who wants to do this?
Right.
So, but it's really great that they allow people to do that. They're, if they're, in photography, they're taking pictures. If they're in filmmaking, they're making films. If they're in psychology, they're starting them off in a research lab immediately and just really helping them learn what that whole major is about. And so that is something that is really, really important. Now, the president went on to say that lots of CEOs say that Champlain grads are just the best employees that they have. And he said that's because they come with experience included. And now they are going to have even more experience because they are changing the way the curriculum is structured. So they're going to start something in the fall 2026. So with that class, it's called Flex 30. And so that means you have to have 30 credits, but obviously it's flexible in how you do it. So now they're having co-ops. And they're giving you academic credit for the co-ops so that you can take 2 co-ops and still graduate in 4 years. or less, depending on how many AP credits that you transfer in. You can transfer credits in, either like from dual enrollment or AP classes, and that might allow you to graduate in 3 years. And also, they are doing, like everybody else, they're kind of trying to get to more into the graduate level of education, and they have a lot of graduate online certificates, and you can take those as part of your undergraduate education and be certified in some of these graduate programs.
I think
So
that's great.
Yeah,
I wish more schools would do that.
It kind of suspiciously reminded me of the D plan at Dartmouth, honestly. It seems sort of the same, but I know they can't call it the D plan because I'm sure that's trademarked. But it seemed like they're starting to kind of recognize that flexibility is something that kids really want and can benefit from, and so they're thinking that kids are going to come out of there with at least a year's worth of work experience before they graduate. And then they also really are supportive of them doing like summer internships and all other kinds of things in addition to this.
Mm-hmm.
So they say that their students, if you look at the salaries that they start at, they have higher earning power and can more quickly apply to higher level jobs because they are already coming in with 2 years of experience.
Yeah.
So that is something I thought was super cool about them. They are embracing AI in the sense that they're trying to respond to it and get in front of it. And they don't know what exactly that looks like yet, but they have developed a partnership with Anthropic. And Anthropic is the owner, I guess, of the AI chatbot Claude, who I did tell Linda once that he was going to be my next husband because he complimented my writing so much. But then my actual husband told me that Claude is trained to flatter me so that I'll keep using him. He just ruins everything. My actual husband. Oh, that reality. He said that they at his workplace, they warned them about getting too flattered by your AI because it's just trying to manipulate you.
What an insight, Lisa. That sounds great. Yeah, I know. Claude and I are familiar with one another.
Well, I've kept him at arm's length ever since I've heard this. I mean, he says something nice and I just tell him, no, I don't want to hear it. Don't flatter me is what I'll tell Claude. But we can talk about my twisted relationships with my chatbot later. But anyway, they've created a think tank, a fellowship think tank on campus where they're taking experts in AI and they're going to think about how they can prepare students to function in the AI world. And the quote that I have, if they want to harvest change.
Change.
And use it to improve the education of their students. So I don't know exactly how you do that, but it sounds pretty cool. Yeah. He had a lot of great quotes. He said that he wants to disrupt higher ed status quo. He wants that school to be a collision zone of interests and passions so that people are interdisciplinary. They are, the collisions are what makes the new stuff, right? Sort of like the Big Bang Theory, I guess,
He sounds like he was a copywriter in a previous life.
He could have been. I didn't get his name was, I even wrote it down, Alex Hernandez. And, he was very charismatic and smart. And yeah, he could very well be a copywriter. I don't know. He certainly was one to know how to throw around a catchphrase.
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of known as like this game design school.
Mm-hmm.
And so like some of the things that it's known for is game design, graphic design, and cybersecurity, but they have a lot of majors. They have business, they have marketing, they have writing, creative studies, information technology. They have a school of social responsibility and innovation where psychology, social work, and a bunch of other things are housed. And they also will let you do individualized study and kind of create your own major. So they have a lot of really cool things. Like they have something called the Leahy Center. I learned in Vermont that everything is named after Leahy, like that, Senator Leahy and the Leahy family. They spread around the love to all the schools. They all have a Leahy something or other.
Oh.
So they have a Leahy Center for cybersecurity. And one of the things, if you can, it's like a competitive program. It's like a scholars program, but they offer, if you get into it, they're guaranteed paid internships in cybersecurity plus a $10,000 scholarship. And so they have this special center. It's called the Lakeside Campus where this is housed, and they have that. But then a very reputable and top cybersecurity firm is also just working there. They've moved their offices in there. And so there's like a lot of cross-pollination, and kids are getting jobs there, not only for internships, but frankly, after they graduate.
Afterwards.
Because I think it works for them because they're training the people they want. Yeah. So it really, it makes a lot of sense. So the most competitive degrees that they have are game design and cybersecurity, and some of their portfolio programs. And, to apply, they're test optional. They had a 73% acceptance rate, but it does vary by the type of major that you're applying into. They require 2 letters of recommendation, personal essay, and like portfolio for graphic design, creative media, animation, and filmmaking. So if you're, you have to be kind of serious about those and have a track record of work that you can show them. They said that if you're interested in things like IT, game studies, the game studio, and cybersecurity, it's probably in your best interest to ED. That ED makes up 1/3 of the class, and most of those are kids in the most competitive majors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They said that they definitely track demonstrated interest, which includes doing their optional essay. Because like we said, it's never optional, kids, but they love you to upload your resume. They really want to see that. So that's not optional either.
Good.
And
I feel validated when I hear things like that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, of course. So they said if you can demonstrate interest by asking for an interview that you can set up with an admissions counselor, and particularly if you have a kind of like some iffy things on your transcript, you want to explain why they're there, that's a really good opportunity to talk to the admissions counselor and tell them in person, in your own words, this whole story of what happened. They take a lot of AP classes, and they'll accept a 3 for a lot of them. So they're pretty liberal on what they'll take. Now it is pretty male heavy right now, 60-40 split. They're trying to get more females in there, but they have a very small international population, and they're not really sure how that's going to go, but they are definitely trying. Right now it's more of a regional school, but they are trying to get a national draw. So they're really doing a lot of marketing and expanding out to other areas of the country. The cost of attendance is $67,000, but they do give merit aid and financial aid. A couple things about student life: there aren't really any sports, except esports is Division I, I think, and that they can go over to all the UVM sports stuff that's happening right next door. And they do have an agreement. So if there's a course you want to take, but it's not at Champlain, you can take a course at UVM or St. Michael's College, so that they can do that. And, all in all, I would say it's the campus was prettier than I thought it was going to be. Obviously, there's Lake Champlain. And the students live in Victorian mansions for their first year. So they have these giant houses, and, they share rooms, and there's bathrooms, and there's floor, but there might be like 30 kids in a house. And I think they have 21 of the houses around campus. So that's kind of cool. You're required to live on the campus the first year, and you can't have a car. Then I think after that you can have a car and you can live off campus if you want. I would describe the campus as charmingly a bit scruffy. I've visited a lot of schools where everything is new and clean and shiny on the inside and the outside. And this school was not like that. It sort of reminded me of University of Chicago. circa 1988, when it was scruffy. I'm sure I haven't been there in a while. You've probably been in those buildings. I bet you they ain't scruffy no more.
I think you might be surprised by some of those buildings.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of those buildings are so old. There's probably no hope. But it's a fun place, and I have to say is that the kids were really interesting to me. Um, like normally when you're on a tour, kids are kind of like, oh yeah, there's a group of adults, and they try to either ignore you or smile, kind of like, can you please get out of my way or stop talking in a very sort of annoyed but polite way. These kids are like, hey, what you doing here? Where are you from? Oh, wow. Tell me about that. I haven't heard of one of those. A college counselor. What's that? Boy, I wish I had one, and like, do you want me to tell you what I like about the school? I'll tell you what I like about the school. You can't believe your tour guide. He gets paid. I don't get paid. I mean, they were so friendly and they were so excited. They were all like studying together. They were working with professors. They were so excited about what they were doing. I told somebody I haven't seen nerds this happy since I went to NC State, but these kids were engaged. They were happy. They were having a good time. The professors seemed like they were having a good time. It had a great energy there, it seemed fun. They almost made me want to be like a computer nerd or something, because it seemed like they were having so much fun with it. Like, maybe I could have fun with it. It's sort of like when I visited SCAD and like everyone was enjoying their art so much. And I was like, I guess I could do art too. But we all know I shouldn't. So, but it had that kind of, it was infectious. The energy, the enthusiasm was infectious. So we all loved it. Everyone on the tour loved it. A lot of people, I don't think anyone had been there before, of the 54 of us. And we just loved it. We all were like going through our list of kids and thinking who we could send there because we knew they would do great. It's a really unique place. It has a lot to offer. Now, the girl on the panel who is a psychology major, she came there because of the upside down curriculum, but like, she was talking about it's a small department, and then one of the professors left, and that was kind of a bummer, and it left a hole in some classes. With her, I wanted to airlift her out of there a little bit. I wanted to say, maybe you need to go take some classes in psychology at UVM until they can hire that professor for that spot. Because there's only like 15 people. On the other hand, she's doing like research, in statistics, the kind of like I was doing in grad school. That no one in the University of Chicago would have ever let my little grubby, incompetent hands near. So, I mean, she was getting a lot out of it, but I just felt like, but the people who are doing cybersecurity and game design, they were like busy, happy, living their best lives. And I think probably going to, be wealthier than me by the time they graduate. So,
well, my good friend certainly hopes that to be true for her game design student who's graduating this year. And he loves it. The family can't say enough good things about it. And he actually got to do a semester abroad in Montreal. And
yeah, I forgot that. They have some like 3 programs that are just like their programs where you can do Champlain classes with Champlain professors in like fabulous cities like Montreal. And that's and a lot of times with some of these science-y programs, it's really hard to study abroad, but they've made it possible. So you really get the full package, unless you like going to football games. But then I guess you just go,
you go to UVM. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I think that their men's soccer team is the strong team there. So you go to soccer games. Or I guess you can go up, get in your car and drive to Bennington and go to some of those dance performances.
Football or the dance performances. Yeah.
Well, Linda, I don't think it's any secret which one of those I would attend. So
I don't know. Football games are fun, Lisa. I mean, they really can be fun.
Give me a nice tap dance number and a dance break any day of the week. So,
then, well, you said tap dance, so maybe, but
maybe modern dance, but even bad modern dance, it's still good because you're like, wow, what does that even mean? Why are they doing that? Like, you're just like, that is super cool. Like, I would never have thought to do that. It's like so creative and maybe a bit disturbing, but it's thought provoking.
See, when I see modern dance or most dance, I think, how does their body move like that? My body does not, could never move like that. So I'm always impressed with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I could never do that. But football is fun. I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna
Well, Linda,
be the
if you like
voice of
watching,
reason here.
if you like watching people get permanently life-altering concussions, then go for it. I would never want to stop you.
I'm gonna.
It does.
I'm
Seems a
gonna
little gladiator-ish
stand by
to
what
me.
I said.
But that's just me.
Football can be fun to watch. I don't know that I would let my, if I had a child, I'm not sure I would let them play, but I admit it. I don't mind rooting for the Lions. God bless hopefully they'll do well this year. So yes, I stand
for
by
your
it.
sake, I hope they do. But I'm a person who spent many years as a therapist listening to sad Bears fans in Chicago. And that is just, to be a Bears fan is to pick a tragic and disappointing life, I'm afraid. They build your hopes
It's
up and
nothing
then
like
they just tear it down every single year.
they don't have anything on the Lions. At least they won a Super Bowl. At least they got to go to a Super Bowl. So
Well, I guess I'm going to shut this down, Linda, because I think the last thing our listeners want is to hear you and me talk about football.
I know.
Talk about the very useless use of their time.
I think this is what they call cringe. So
Oh my
we
God.
should probably end it here.
All right.
But
So,
Champlain, 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up. If I had more thumbs, I would give it more thumbs.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa.
All right. Bye.
Friends, on Monday's episode, as promised, I'm going to share a number of recommended resources for you. Then I'm going to take a question from a listener that I literally just heard this morning, but it's time sensitive, so I want to make sure that I address it. And then after that, we will have the interview that started last week, and it will continue both on Monday and the following Monday. And it's with Heath Einstein, the Vice Provost of Enrollment, or Chief Enrollment Officer, which is kind of easier for me to see, at TCU. And we're talking about what colleges look for, like, expect, don't like when it comes to teacher recommendations. Friends, a lot of times when you're out here and you've got a message that's going against the culture, you can feel at times like you're just spitting in the ocean. You can feel like you're just a drop in the bucket. Or you can feel like, to put it another way, you're just a grain of sand. But sometimes you get a little bit of encouragement. And that happened to me this week. I did get some encouragement from a podcast listener, sent in a message, and it indicated to me that, you know what? Whether it's a drop in a bucket, spitting in the ocean, a grain in the sand, there are people out there and they're listening. And so I want to share this message with you. So this is what this podcast listener said. My kids have been talking to me about their college applications and the conversations at school. Many of their friends are using prestige to define their college list. My one student, this is a parent that has twins. So she refers to one of her students in particular, is asking me, why am I not applying to higher ranked schools after feedback from her friends? And then the parent reminds me of the schools that the student's applying to, which, by the way, a lot of 1%ers on the list, meaning in the 1% of the hardest schools to get into in the country. So then the podcast listener says this. It really gave her pause to consider if she should be adding more schools after the criticism. But then I told her the tagline of the podcast. College is a match to be made. It's not a prize to be won. Her response, period. She bought into it. I also relayed what you've said about basketball shoes. It's not the shoes on the athlete, but it's the athlete on the in the shoes. Friends, what happened was this mom understood a concept a lot of people don't understand. The peer group at her student's school thought that college is a prize to be won. But the mom understood that college is a match to be made. So never forget that. College is not a prize to be won. College is a match to be made. See you on Monday, friends. And that's our show. Big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut, Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stylionis Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.